If you can identify who you are in just 3 words, people will immediately know whether they're interested in you. For me, my 3 words, as far as I'm concerned, are connector, philanthropist, and speaker. And if people can relate to working with or befriending or whatever, somebody who is a connector and a philanthropist and a speaker, then for me, it's work.
For our listeners navigating midlife and looking to redefine their purpose or career path, could you offer any guidance or strategies based on your experience? And our listeners, I believe, are upper middle class people from these categories. And some of them already on the brink of changes, some of them after 50 and you still have years to live and prosper and work might be, fired or should reconsider their life ahead, what to do, how to redefine yourself. What would be your, again, guidance, advice? And I understand that it's a big topic, but in general.
Very big topic. I love the part of the meaning of your question there because I regard myself as only being 17, I'm not an old man. And as far as the brain and the body continues, I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing as much as I can. Now, different people, of course, have different demographics and they have different living styles. A lot of them have husbands, wives, partners, children, and so on. I'm slightly old there because I'm a divorced gentleman and I live on my own at the current time, I should add. But it's an interesting one to answer that one. I think in my own immediate response is to always try and get something that you can gain total satisfaction with. It can be philanthropy. It's not always philanthropy because philanthropy itself is and can be in itself a profession. But to me, it's something I love doing. I don't deliberately earn money from it, but find something within your own soul that you can work with. A friend of mine has a similar hobby to me also. That includes cars. I love cars. I'm a total car fanatic and he is as well. And even working with cars and doing things like that, it creates a passion and a hobby, and you can then turn it into a business as a sideline, as a hobby business, if you want to. Just do not repairing cars necessarily, but perhaps even at the age of mid-70s, even to 80, go on a track and do some racing or something of that nature. You spoke about my skydiving. Anything up in the air, if I'm flying an airplane, if I'm flying a glider, not so much skydiving now because I'm reducing that a little bit, but anything like that is just something that's good for the soul and good for the heart and so on. Other people just love doing things like exercise. So carry on doing what you're doing that makes you feel good. And that's the main thing. I saw my own physician a few weeks ago and he said more or less exactly that. Yes, I may be a little overweight, but at the same time, he looked at me as I was about to walk out the door. Ian, just carry on doing what you're doing. And that was somebody saying he admires what I do because I'm happy with what I am and who I am and my health. And fortunately, I've got full health. And if I can carry on being like this for as long as I can, then job done. Now, I do appreciate, of course, not everybody has full health, but find things that are not as too stressful. There's so many answers to that as to what your not full health is, but find something that you can do within your own parameters and your own boundaries. You can do that just puts that smile on your face. And that always does with what I do, always does for me.
Purpose and passion are big drivers actually for health and well-being, as far as I understand and think. But now a little bit from other side, as a LinkedIn mentor, entrepreneur, and somebody deeply involved in the personal growth of others, what is one piece of unconventional advice? And you already provided that. You find yourself giving time and again piece of unconventional advice?
In the context of perhaps talking about LinkedIn.
Yeah, professional, because some people need to work, continue to work, to start maybe new businesses, and it's hard. And being after 50, 60.
These days, of course, we are living in a technological world. We're living in a world where our life is in one of these things. And it doesn't matter what you do, there's going to be some element of technology involved with the way you exist and the way you live and so on. I tend to be a little bit resistant to technology because I lived a lot of my professional life and personal life when there wasn't technology, before these things were created and so on. And I was more successful then, but than I'm now. But it's a different definition of success. But I'm not going to go into an argument or debate about AI. I try and resist AI coming into my life. So because I still want to know that I can continue to create through my own abilities and through my own intelligence. It doesn't matter whether it's a big screen like a computer or laptop or a tablet or a mobile phone, cell phone. There's different ways of viewing it. And if you come from a slightly older generation like myself, I'm not talking about Gen Zs, possibly millennials to an extent, and so on. Everything has got to be obvious to everybody on that little tiny small screen that a mobile phone is. You've got to do and design what you do. And this applies to everything in life, I think. You've got to design what you do so everybody can see it in a simple term, visually, and also in a way that people can immediately understand, not in a full page. And that applies also to other things that you do, whether it's a recreation, a hobby, an interest, or something you're doing in business or work. Can explain it in one or two sentences, and it's so easy to understand in a monosyllabic way. Then you've achieved something great there and so on. And when being in talent, being a headhunter, one of the questions I always asked people, one of the first questions I always asked people was, if one of the things that usually are asked is, who are you, what have you done, and so on. But the question I ask is, what are you, in 3 words? And so if you can identify who you are in just 3 words, people immediately know whether they're interested in you. For me, my 3 words, as far as I'm concerned, are connector, philanthropist, and speaker. And if people can relate to working with or befriending or whatever, somebody who is a connector and a philanthropist and a speaker, then for me it's work.
Look, using this opportunity, I need to ask, what kind of advice can you give me, not for my life journey ahead? You know a little bit about me, but from your perspective, based on your knowledge, what advice I can get?
Well, I have to be so careful how I answer that. Just carry on doing what you're doing. This has been a very fun conversation. This has been a conversation.
Not to change anything, not to, I don't know, because I have a lot of interest, which sometimes get me out of the track. I can tell you. That's why I'm asking, because I feel that I need to be focused with all the ideas, which taking apart my concentration and attention.
But you travel a lot, and you've traveled a lot to a lot of different places, and you've absorbed and taken in from a conversation we've had previously. You've absorbed and taken in. You've been educated about everything about the countries you've visited and lived in, and that is a treasure trove of information, not just for yourself, but also for others. And I'm not suggesting you be a travel agent or travel consultant in any way, but
I was already. It's one of my certificates, but it's a hobby.
yeah, maybe. But as you say, as a hobby, it's just something that is great knowledge to have. I've not traveled as much as you. I'm not a great traveler. I do travel, but I'm not somebody who says, "Oh, I've got to go here, they go there, and have a long weekend in wherever and so on." If I travel somewhere, I'm going to spend a lot of time doing it, and at the moment, I just don't have the time because I'm enjoying doing other things. So it's low down on my, as they say, the bucket list. But as far as I'm concerned, just carry on doing what you're doing. And the conversations I've had, I've come off the calls and thinking, yeah, she's got it right. There you go. But the other things that we've spoken about on this conversation, the family office, the philanthropy, the connections, LinkedIn, and so on, have all been the things that are important to me. And like yourself, I'm about to become a podcaster.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. And actually, my next question was about your future plan, but like in this format, what is the next big goal for you and the Lordian Group with your new directions will be in 2025?
The thing that I won't call it a goal, but I'll call it a thing that I will define as being what will take a lot of my time on is building the connections business more so than it is now. I've had a lot of conversations recently with other people about how we're doing it and so on, and building up to being what could be potentially one of the key ultra high net worth connections businesses, certainly here in the UK and possibly across Europe as time goes by. The family office business will continue to be stable. I'm not looking for growth in that. I'm looking for people to come to us because they know we are family office experts. Plus, of course, continuing to work on this white paper that how to simplify family office. And that's a great thing to do. I love doing that and so on. But the key, one of the new things, and we just touched upon it a minute ago, that's going to be new to me is to, apart from being on the receiving end of being on podcasts, is to be a podcaster. And a good close friend of mine who is an experienced podcaster and I have now holding hands on this, and we've created the synopsis of our podcast and what it is and the theme and everything else. But during 2025, early in 2025, we'll start with the podcast with our guests and so on. And the podcast itself has a very unusual name. It's not just called the Ian Franklin Podcasts. It's called, wait for this, Zombie and the Immortal Jellyfish. And you mentioned this in the introduction.
And what is your role in this one, zombie or jellyfish?
Zombie. Zombie.
And why you selected this role for you?
I've always wanted to do a podcast, but my colleague is a lady called Lenka. Yeah, I can't pronounce her surname. I still can't pronounce her surname. I've known her for years, but she comes from Slovakia originally. But she's an experienced podcaster, and she invited me to be the guest on her podcasts in the summer of 2023. And one of the things that she found out about me in my extracurricular, of course, you've picked up my jumping out of airplanes and other things like that. One of the other things you haven't mentioned that probably not aware is my acting, because for many years I've been a background support artist in film and TV. And now I can do speaking parts as well because of the roles that are allowed in that. And she asked me the question, she knew about this, and she asked me the question, Ian, what would, for the rest of your life and before you die, what role in acting would you most love to play? And I said, I've always wanted to be a zombie. A lot of people watch Walking Dead and the other famous films and TV series, but I've always wanted to be a zombie. But it's a strange way you worded the question because you said before I die, but a zombie is after I die. She's always called me her favorite zombie, not knowing how many other zombies she knows.
It's probably the role you've had in your childhood. Probably from the childhood, you were dreaming about the role in school theater, no?
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so, no, but I don't know. I just like the idea of being a zombie one day, and something. And every actor does have the sort of ideal role that he or she would love to play at some stage, if they haven't already done. Of course, that creates character acting and so on. But I'm not saying that if I do get a part as a zombie in film or TV at some stage, doesn't mean to say I'm going to be a zombie for all the other parts in the future. So, but yeah, she's the jellyfish because there's quite a long story behind that, but it's all based around a particular breed of jellyfish, which is actually immortal. It regenerates itself, and it's about the size of your small fingernail. And it lives out in the seas. Of course, it's so small you won't see it, but the only time it's likely to die is if it's eaten by a predator or is diseased and dies from disease. But most of them are still out there in the oceans and they continue to regenerate themselves.
Now I understand. Actually, you're speaking about longevity project. Your podcast would be about longevity because it's a zombie which doesn't die and jellyfish. It's one of the definitions and directions, probably, you need to explore.
And the theme of our I was going to say the theme of our jellyfish, but the theme of our podcast is that a lot of podcasts. I've enjoyed this podcast. There's been a lot of smiles and some laughs on this podcast, but a lot of podcasts can be very deep in finance and business and don't create a lot of lightheartedness. And so what we'll be doing with our podcast is creating a lot of amusement, a lot of smiles in business and finance and satire to an extent, so long as our guests are understanding of satire and so on. So creating a lighthearted, humorous element with our guests, who we will get to know first, of course, in something quite significantly, so that they can enjoy the brighter side of business.
Great idea. I like it and like it so well. So I will be looking forward for your podcast. The name I already remember. And with your extensive involvement in diverse sectors, how do you envision the future of philanthropy and social entrepreneurship evolving, especially in AI-driven times, when more and more people and even organizations already relying on AI tools, algorithms? I believe it somehow will change nature of social entrepreneurship. What do you think about it?
That's a real thought leader and a question, that one. And this is one that creates an element of a kind of a fear factor. It's a kind of a fear factor within me in so many ways. I hinted at this earlier when we were talking and I mentioned AI and so on, that AI has got to have its place. Unfortunately, it's quite often going over those sorts of boundaries, but AI has to have its place, and particularly in aspects of health and dealing with people who are very ill in operating theatres and so on in the health services, plus also other professions like law and so on. But the problem that we are in this day and age is that we are in that high technology age. We're in the technology revolution. We're in the AI revolution. Even something like a year, 18 months ago, those two letters, A and I, weren't everyday language. These days, it is everyday language. So I've got to give a very open mind on this one, because I'm not a fan of how it is often used. It's, in my view, and I will be totally frank and totally honest and transparent on my view on this one, that AI is overused in aspects of our everyday lives, in particular social media, that a lot of people, most people, use on a daily basis. AI is there to tell us what to do. The ability to think, I think, is going away. There are other arguments about, well, AI is going to take over our jobs and there's going to be so many people out there not being able to work and so on. Yeah, okay, that is another argument, and I agree with that. But the biggest thing for me is AI takes away a lot of the ability to think. And I've had that thing in there called a brain for the last 70 years, and I want to keep it going. And I want to know that everything I'm doing is stuff that I've done, not some technology. And there's a kind of resistance on that. So it's a difficult one to answer your question as far as my point of view is concerned. But, and the very big but is here, that not irrespective of what I've just said, my thought leader answer to that is that at some stage in the future, whether it's in my lifetime or not, I don't know. But some stage in the future, I think there will be some sort of new revolution where there's a kind of a U-turn of the way business, commerce, industry, philanthropy, any sector where there's element of work involved and possibly passion as well, but that's a different thing. But work is involved. There will be some sort of U-turn where people would suddenly say, hang on a minute. We're not all robotic. We're not all iRobot, as per the film, which a lot of people refer to when they're talking about AI. We're not all governed by machines. We've still got that thing in there called a brain. And it'll quite often go back, I think, possibly, if I was to put a timescale on it, I would say probably about 25, 30 years in the future, where a lot of businesses will go back to being purely human-led.
We wish, and I agree with you 120%. I'm the same. Even I'm using AI tools, but I understand, look, the value of actual intelligence will be even more precise over the artificial intelligence. And it's not about competition. It's about all the experience and soul, and nobody knows exactly, by the way, how brain is works. They speak about certain models. Yes, there is certain language models, but the brain, as far as I'm still learning, it's such complex structure. I'm not even speaking about other aspects, I would say, of our life as a soul, as a spiritual part, all these feelings, emotions, and connections that we create during the life and memories. And what I was asking you at the beginning, some hereditary features that we get from your family. I'm from my family, and everyone's family, and our life, all the richness of experience. It's how we understand intelligence. These creatures, for them, intelligence, it's collection of facts, knowledge of it. Actually, whatever you feed this entity, whatever you get in some transformative matter, what kind of information, what kind of, and it's evolving. And I'm frightened as well because these smart boys and girls who work on these creatures, as I say, they frighten it sometimes themselves. And we have a lot of names of more mature people who get out of the project because they became frightened of possible results. I hope that humankind will get, it's actually not humankind, it's government. It's people who still have common sense and some caution about regulating. And people speak about regulating already for some time, but I don't know. The world is moving forward. I believe that experience of people like you and knowledge, and it's not only knowledge, it's all, I don't know, condensation of experiences you cannot put in AI model, as far as I understand. But it still will be a now leading force in our day-to-day life. And I already see, and I'm using AI tools for my work just because I am entrepreneur and I need help and I need to save time. If you speak about efficiency, yes, I agree, but not about decision making. There is my point. Yes, in a small sense. How do you envision the impact of AI tools? And we spoke a little bit, but just a little bit more in technology and information media development on people's lives and sense of purpose in midlife. And what would be your advice with purpose, which is living people's hearts and minds? And it's already affecting young generation, in my view. But since we are speaking about people in midlife who already accumulated experience, knowledge, understanding of world, even with all our differences, how to keep the sense of purpose, what to do.
There's negatives and positives to that. One of the problems with the human race is the fact that a lot of the human race are followers rather than leaders. And followers tend to be quite, with the greatest respect to anybody listening, followers in the human race tend to be led by influences around them. And those influences these days are social media. And social media governs us in so many ways. One can also argue the obvious historic influences could be politicians and journalists and the media generally. But social media does tend to tell us how to be who we should be in their eyes, social media's eyes. As you just said, a lot of that influence comes out of the Silicon Valleys of this world, the very clever people who know how to work computers and design programs and everything. And they are, in so many ways, the new governors of how we live and so on, unless you know how to resist influence. And I keep using this term, continue to be who you are, because if you can understand the fact that there are other influences out there and get a basic understanding what they are. I understand that AI is going to be around for a little while, even though it's telling us that we've got to use AI. I try and resist that as much as possible. Then it's going to happen. But at some stage, just keep being able to be creative in your own mind. And that relates to whatever you do, whether it's in business, personal life, philanthropy, whatever. Just continue to be creative. Understand. Continue to try and understand what you're up against. In my life, much of my, as we've spoken about on this conversation, much of my life has been around making connection, making network, making a people thing around me, and understanding as many people as conceivably possible I'm associated to, who are my friends, who are my family even, and also other relationships I hope had and have. And there's the metaphor is to read between the lines in so many ways of everything. But in a physical sense, if these days, if I'm dealing in talent and I'm looking at a CV or a resume, a lot of those CVs and resumes will be written by some sort of artificial force. It could be it's a job seeker, it could be an applicant tracking system, it could be AI from having resumes designed on LinkedIn for you, which LinkedIn does do if you've got a profile, and that can be done. But that doesn't show who the person is behind those lines, or that's just print on a piece of paper or on a screen. That doesn't show the personality of the individual. That doesn't show the character of the individual. This is the fault of AI. And it takes away the ability of because people are just reading the print. It takes away their ability to understand who they're dealing with. The personalities and characters that I mentioned. This is a typical example of one of the faults. So try and continue. If I'm giving advice, I would say, don't just leave it at what your screen in front of you or that piece of paper is telling you. Do a little bit of homework, do a bit of digging, find out who that person is or those people are that you're mixing with, or you're working with, or whatever the case may be, because then you'll know that whether they're the sort of people you want to continue working or being associated to. That can extend into your personal life. Depends on how you want to define your personal life and partners, marriages, whatever. But certainly in a working philanthropy life, don't take everything that you're seeing on your screen for total granted. Understand who or what is behind what you're reading about. That to me is quite fun, actually. I quite enjoy doing that, but that's something I've done for so many years. But otherwise, you've got something that is technology, that is robotic, who has no soul, telling you basically what you thought you needed to know, or they thought you needed to know. Do you see what I'm getting at here? It's superficial rather than behind.
And I believe we will continue this conversation as time will bring more, evidence or facts or multiple changes that our life is so rich with lately. And thank you very much for your time, wisdom, advice. And today I was speaking with Lord Jan Franklin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed this very much.
What an incredible journey we've traversed today. Our heartfelt gratitude goes to Jan Franklin for sharing his wisdom, vision, and philanthropic spirit. His legacy is not etched in stone. It thrives in the lives he touches and the communities he uplifts. The convictions of the Lord Franklin continue to shape a brighter future for us all. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We hope you've been inspired to connect, create, and perhaps soar to the new heights just as young does. Remember, in the words of our esteemed guests, it's not about the wealth you accumulate, but the impact you make. Don't miss our next episode, where we continue to explore the stories of those who redefine success and purpose. Be sure to follow us for updates. Until next time, keep reaching for the stars, and may your journey be as happy and fulfilling as the one we shared today. Bye.